There's no shortage of scam warnings these days, whether it be answering that dodgy text message or perhaps an unsolicited call for the debt that you owe to someone somewhere. Labor is now calling on the government to cease the ATO being able to call you for a tax debt. Joining me is Labor MP Stephen Jones and Shadow Financial Services Minister. You say there's no issue with debt collecting. You don't think it should be done via phone calls. So this is a phone call coming from the ATO to a person.
Is it?
What's wrong with that?
Is it? That's what we don't know. So one of the most prolific scams over the last 12 months were people calling Australians saying, I'm from the tax office, you owe us some money. And can you give us your account? And if you don't pay it within 5 days, we're going to take you to court. And if it wasn't the tax office, it was Border Force. And if it wasn't the Border Force, it was...
Sure,
pretty well known. So the problem is, so the problem here is what you've got is the tax office duplicating a practice that is a known scam conducted by frauds and criminals online. At the very worst, it's confusing. But what is more likely to be the case is it's actually priming Australians to engage in the sorts of behaviour which most experts in the cyber world are saying, actually, that's pretty risky. So what we need, and I'm not saying that the tax office can't use every method available to them to collect unpaid debts, but there needs to be a mechanism where the person receiving that call, who's got to identify themselves, by the way, is able to verify that the person they're talking to is who they say they are.
Well, but how do you know they're not already? What happens in a call if it is from the ATO? So there's a method of them saying who it is. Isn't that the whole point?
In the calls that I've had? In the calls that I've had? No.
No, from
I have to go through a verification process to prove who I am. But when I ask to verify who the person is who's made the call, I can't do it. So and that's the problem. And that's the problem. And whether it's the tax office... It's the other...
So you're saying a cold call's fine, a debt collection agency can still call someone up? That's still okay?
No, I'm not saying that at all. In fact, that's where the problem is.
But this is how debt collection...
This is the issue.
I understand the issue you're saying, but debt collection agencies often work this way. People ignore calls, they ignore emails. Yes. I actually know someone who works in this field. Yes. And the only way they get people to sign up is to get them on the phone and say, look, this problem's not going away. Let's put you on a payment plan, convincing them on the phone to do that. Yep. If you take away that, how are you going to collect the debt?
Find another way, because that's exactly the same mechanism that scammers use. I was talking to somebody this morning, $45,000 gone before they picked up the fact that they were talking to a scammer. Yes, they had a legitimate debt, but they didn't have a debt with the person who collected the $45,000 from them. This is a $33 billion a year problem. $33 billion is being... This is not small-time stuff. $33 billion. But
isn't the issue the verification rather than...
Yes, and that's my point. That's the point that I've been trying to make from the very beginning. Okay. The tax office has got to find a way...
But I'm just a bit confused here. So a cold call... Why can't a cold call still work, but that person be verified in some way?
Well, the way it works at the moment is if I receive a cold call, I've got to verify who I am, but I have no way, if you're the person making the call, verifying who you are. That's got to stop. We've got to find another way.
What is another way?
Well,
you're saying
this is the problem. This is the problem that surely the government and the tax office can solve. They have been... Look, there might be... I can think of actually about half a dozen ways it can happen. I'm not going to because of security reasons, because you don't set yourself a manual for how scammers get around it. You don't publish a manual for how scammers get around it, but there are... And cybersecurity experts will provide you with a range of different mechanisms. Some of the best banks do it at the moment. Hear me out on this. Hear me out on this.
People or not?
Some of the best banks do it at the moment through two-factor identification. It can work one way. It can work the other way as well.
Well, I mean, we've all used it.
But they're not, and that's my point. And that's my point. They're not doing it. Okay. That is my point, Tom.
All right. But what I'm saying is, are you still allowing... You said you got a bit cold on the cold calls. I'm just a bit confused as to why they still couldn't be verified. So you can make a cold call, but you just have to make sure the person can verify you are who you are.
And that's what I've written to the Minister on, saying ensuring that when your staff are contacting Australians and demanding money, that they've got to be able to verify that they are actually from the ATO. Otherwise, the person on the end of the line is entitled to say, well, you can't verify, I'm hanging up. Thank you.
But the cold call is still all right?
It's the fact that there has to be a way that you can verify. Otherwise, we're priming people to engage in the very risky behaviour that is costing us $33 billion a year.